Well, a new poll gives a timely boost to the Prince and Princess of Wales.
And thoughts and prayers to Harry and Meghan's new/old PR firm. Hello and welcome to Heirs and Spares, the show that dives into the fascinating world of two of the most recognized royal couples from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you updates on old Prince Harry and Meghan Markle right here in California, although Harry's in your neck of the woods, Rupert.
Yes, he is. He's got a date in the High Court, which a court case that could last for 9 weeks. But my main news, of course, well, I'm sure I'm going to get a bit angry with something Meghan's done, but mainly I'm here to report on the well-being of the Prince and Princess of Wales.
We do love the Prince and Princess of Wales. We're going to get there in a second, but one story that I thought we had to discuss together was something that we predicted last week right here on this show. The stories circulating specifically on the Daily Mail, writing Keir Starmer is facing demands to cancel the King's state visit to the United States over Donald Trump's gangster Greenland threats. The president has shocked NATO allies by warning that opponents of an American takeover of the Danish territory will be hit with tariffs from February the 1st. And he singled out the UK as well as France, Germany, and Denmark. This drew a furious response from Western leaders, says the Daily Mail. Again, amid fresh fears that President Trump is intent on ripping apart the military alliance that has maintained world peace for the past 8 decades. We're also saying, Rupert, MPs jump in and say to Keir Starmer, absolutely not. Why would we send King Charles to the United States to give President Trump legitimacy in any way, shape, or form? And this is just so silly to me because we had this conversation a week ago.
Well, in many ways, we're not a political podcast, so it's hard, though, to take the politics out of this. And that actually shows where the royal family does sit. It is in the crosshairs of whatever is going on politically. And that is the role of the royal family, which is to be the sort of a political face, a soft power face. And obviously what's going on in Greenland, we're not here, but from a European perspective, it seems slightly left field. And, people are scratching their heads wondering what the heck is going on here. And then obviously Keir Starmer has made statements today about it and certainly is fairly condemning in some ways with what is being promised here. And most right-minded people in Europe think, well, what the hell's going on here? It doesn't seem logical. And
well, taking the politics out of it, do you think when it comes to the perception of a king that's so important culturally in general, the British royal family, in my opinion, is the most important royal family. Do you think that it would give we saw Colin Firth's ex-wife rip up her award from the royal family after they hosted Trump during a state visit last year. So does it give, in the eyes of people that are already over Trump, him some legitimacy to host King Charles, for us to see them toasting together and enjoying each other's company in DC, celebrating 250 years of independence? It all just seems kind of arrogant.
Well, I think this is going to be interesting, is how this plays out over the next couple of months, because it's not just that. It's also, the World Cup. Now, if many European countries will be competing in that World Cup in America. And, suddenly, and the Prince of Wales, to get back onto what is normally my beat, is due to be there, I would assume, for the FA. So this actually is potentially a very, it's a world-changing story if he continues to go through with his threats. Now, I'm not here to judge. American politics seems at times to be a bit Wild West, but who am I to say? It's not straightforward in this country. So no country hasn't got their problems. And it's not for me to have an opinion one way or another, but on the face of it, from a European perspective, it does seem slightly strange that what is going on. But for the royal family, it does put them in the crosshairs. And for Keir Starmer, how does he navigate the special relationship as it's returned in terms of the royal family? Because remember, he used the royal family, and the royal family were able, because Keir Starmer went to President Trump and said, here's a visit, here's an invitation for a state visit to this country, which he readily accepted. And because of his love of the royal family, that is President Trump's love of the royal family. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and does put the royal family in a unique position that they might be able to use some of their soft power to maybe find a way of calming and diffusing this situation. So it is a very interesting few months for all of us to work out, where does this actually play out? And for the royal family, I am sure it's being discussed at length, because preparations for a royal visit probably are already underway, because if it's April, May, that's not long. Their diaries will be already being worked out. And then for the World Cup, again, that has further implications, because many NATO countries will be competing. Germany, France, they'll all be there. And if things escalate, then that could put that in jeopardy. Where does Prince William sit if England then compete and the others don't? I mean, it is a mess, to put it bluntly. And
we're not actually,
family,
the royal family is actually not supposed to have any political influence, but you're absolutely right, because when Trump came back from one of his most recent visits to the UK, he did a complete 180 about Ukraine, and that was because of a private meeting he had with King Charles.
So I do think, this is the essence of the royal family, and obviously Canada are part of the Commonwealth. So that is, it's another interesting dynamic with the relationship. Canada are hosting the World Cup as well, as are Mexico. So it's going to be a very interesting first 6 months. But if it all calms down, then, the status quo can be maintained. But, at the moment, you're never quite sure what is happening from a day to day with this. Who'd have thought that Greenland would become the political hot potato? But for the king, Keir Starmer, from a British perspective, and indeed Prince William, that's why he's not out of this as president of the FA. If this unravels, then the royal family's, visits to America will be scrutinized very heavily. But, we want the status quo to be maintained, and hopefully the king will go to America and the whole thing has eased. But it does show the importance of the royal family. You cannot underestimate that soft power element of the royal family. And this is a time that might be able to come to the fore. But there's going to be a lot of water under the Potomac Bridge, or whatever it is. Have I got the bridge right there? Is it the Potomac? Is there a bridge across the Potomac in Washington? Well, I don't know. Anyway, I think that's a river that runs through Washington, but there's going to be a lot of water. Anyway, I think I've messed up my metaphor there, Kinsey, so for which I do apologise. But if you see, it's interesting. And for the royal family, Prince William, I'm sure, all these things, they are fully aware of what is going on a global, world. And it's a pretty, fractured environment at the moment. And let's hope in all these things a degree of common sense prevails, and the royal family will be able to go about their job, and the World Cup will happen normally, and all these things can happen normally. But holding your breath at the moment, you're never quite sure what's going to happen when you exhale.
Right. Well, you said politics is not your niche. It's not our niche here at Heirs and Spares. But one thing you are an expert at is sport. So talk to me about the Princess of Wales and the Red Roses and that sharp, smart red blazer we saw her in at Windsor Castle entertaining the girls. What was that event about?
Well, it's celebrating the fact that England won the England women's rugby team are world champions. I am just going to say that Prince William had as bad a day as I did yesterday.
Oh, thoughts and prayers.
Team lost it. Yeah, but our thoughts and prayers. We lost to Everton in a pretty bad display. So I know I was a grumpy Rupert the Bear last night. I don't know whether William was, but on the other hand, good to see. I believe that it was a wretched wet day, so we saw pictures of her under umbrella, sort of scuttling into the castle.
Also,
But it did
everybody
show.
making a big deal out about the fact that she drove herself there. This is not
Oh,
Meghan
well,
Markle, ladies and gentlemen. She's wildly comfortable on the Windsor estate. Yes, she drove herself. Yes, she popped out of her car and ran in with an umbrella. She is very self-sufficient. I hate to use the word commoner, but she had a life before this life, and just a very normal and
yeah.
independent, sweet woman. Like,
Well, in many ways, what she did is probably, she doesn't live very far away. She might have done the school run in the morning and then hot-footed up to the castle.
mm,
I don't know, but it's not a million miles and would have been easy. It's an easy commute from Forest Heath, Forest Lodge to the castle. She's in the England rugby team were all in blue. You couldn't miss her. So it is that standout shot. But red roses, that is the colour of England. So it was a perfectly normal colour. They were in blue, so there was a symmetry. What I think did happen, unfortunately for the women's rugby team, their coach broke down, and they were supposed to have a tour of Windsor Castle. But whatever happened from their training base, not a million miles away where they're based, to get to Windsor Castle, there was some traffic issues or some coach issues, so it's slightly curtailed. But the upshot was there was some nice quotes. Um, Obviously, the Princess of Wales. I don't know how much our audience know about rugby, but I know we have viewers all over the world. Getting tackled by a boisterous 12-year-old at rugby, would might be. I think the Princess of Wales may not want that, and as she indicated, because a rugby tackle is designed to bring someone to the ground. So I love rugby. It's a great sport, and one of the great things that came about is a lot of the ladies who are being interviewed, and there's some extremely talented players in that group, talking about how rugby is a great game for all shapes and sizes. When it first started as a game, it was started not a million miles from where I live at Rugby, where Ellis, playing a game, decided to run with a ball. And that's how the game started at Rugby School, which is a private school, as I say, not a million miles from where I live. But rugby is a game where if you forwards, you were sort of big, maybe carrying a little bit of extra weight. You were just there for your sort of, and then you'd have the three quarters. They're the flashy. They're the quarterbacks, the runners. If to use a sort of put it into an American football context. But rugby and now women's rugby hugely popular now. I know friends of mine whose daughters are playing it and absolutely love it. So great to see the Princess of Wales having an opportunity to celebrate the English women's rugby team's brilliant success. And they've got some very talented players, I say, with that reception. Fairly normal to have something like that, but the only thing the RFU, the English Rugby Football Union, need to do is maybe get a new coach.
uh-oh.
But
Well,
not of the playing time, because they got a very good coach in John Mitchell, but in transportation terms.
Okay, yeah. Coach, yes,
Coach, yeah,
vehicle.
the
Um,
bus, the bus.
we talked about some of the quotes that were overheard from the Princess of Wales while she was doing this engagement, and that's one of the little treats or benefits from these experiences is you get to know the family just a little bit more. It's not oversharing, which is, again, if we're comparing, which the show is about comparing the two siblings, we get a little bit of an overshare. We're not even going to talk about Meghan Markle's idiotic Instagram posts over the weekend, but it feels like an
Oh,
overshare from
go
this.
on. Oh, come
But it
on.
feels
Don't
like
go
a
there.
an overshare from the Sussex camp, and we just get little bits and pieces from William and Catherine that make us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And she told the Red Roses that both Prince Louis and Prince George play the sport at school, and Charlotte even plays at home when the whole family is playing together. But what I loved was that Louis takes part in an extracurricular activity called rugby tots for younger boys and girls. Rugby tots. Just the idea of all these little legs running around a grassy knoll cracks me up,
Well,
especially with the idea of Prince Louis there.
well, yeah, I'm betting that's a ball of energy. Look, I actually I used to play rugby against Lambrook, where George, Louis, and Charlotte are at school. I think I've mentioned before the worst hot chocolate on our circuit of prep schools that we played against, and I played rugby against them. But we are talking a long time ago. But rugby is a game played at many of these schools, and touch rugby, for the tots, you basically touch and then you've got to pass the ball. It's a way of, because in the end, if you see rugby at the highest level, it's a pretty intense contact sport. It's not for the faint-hearted, and you've got to be supremely fit to play it. But it is a very popular game, and I don't know whether there's the opportunity for Charlotte to play rugby at her school, Lambrook, but maybe not. I don't know. And but for George, I'm sure he absolutely loves it. He also plays football, stroke soccer as well. So it is. I think he's sports mad, and absolutely, a lot of these schools, sport is very important to the curriculum. And I've driven past the playing fields at Lambrook, and they're pretty decent. And so they are in a very privileged position. Great sports facilities, and obviously maybe at the weekend on a Saturday morning, Louis is wheeled off to go and play a bit of touch rugby somewhere.
Rugby tots. Yeah, they know it's
But for rugby, well, it's touch rugby, but for tots, if you see what I mean.
so
Yeah,
sweet. Yeah, so it's nice to know that they're so similar to their competitive mom
yeah.
and dad. Sweet stories coming out of Windsor Castle. Let's talk about something that probably doesn't surprise either one of us in the least. Prince William and Catherine are the most popular members of the royal family, as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Meghan Markle plunge to all-time lows. This is the latest YouGov poll. I just feel like saying hashtag duh.
Yeah.
But I guess this is interesting in the UK because this is also coming out around the same time that there's a pretty aggressive, in my opinion, PR campaign coming from Team Sussex about the idea of Meghan Markle potentially returning over the summer. So Meghan could return for the 1 year countdown to Invictus. And it's emerged that just 19% of people have a positive view of her. It is the lowest figure recorded by the pollsters for her ever. The only person lower than she is somebody that willingly associated with a convicted pedophile. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. I know that, you're not going to have to pick your job off the floor
Yeah.
here. William and Catherine have behaved wonderfully over the last few years and have shown wonderful leadership and focus.
Yeah, I think they've steady as you go. I think for Prince William, it's obviously been trying to navigate, as we've mentioned before, the way through, both to the most important members of his family, both suffering from cancer and dealing with their recoveries in different ways. I think it's very important that they're seen to be out and about, and the more they are, the better it will be for the royal family. It will enhance their popularity as they try and regroup. And that, I think, is the important phrase now for the royal family. They have to regroup, but it's never going to be easy when there is always, the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor factor hanging around. And obviously, the next 9 weeks is going to be this court case going on with Harry. So he'll be grabbing headlines, whether good, bad, or indifferent, around this court case. So it's going to be an interesting time for the royal family, or the working royals, because they won't be making any comment on this. And we talk about whether Harry's going to see his father at
Wait,
this
well,
stage.
we'll get there in a
Yeah, we'll
second.
get
You're
there.
always
But in a
jumping the
way,
gun, but
yeah,
you're so right because uh I do think that William and Catherine are probably, I always say that they're unbothered. I do believe that they're unbothered, but specifically with Harry and his court cases, we've seen a pattern of behavior where Harry tries to justify his anger and his presence there by using William and Catherine as an example of being violated too. And William and Catherine have dealt with these issues privately. You know, Harry, stop dragging your brother and his wife in general, but stop dragging them into your dramas. And we have seen examples of Harry saying, well, they tapped William and Catherine's phones too. And it's just not his place to drag them into his personal pursuits, slaying his dragons or whatever he's calling it.
Well, this is going to be the interesting dynamic when he comes to appear in
He's
court,
here.
as we
He's
were.
here, or he's there. He's
He's
there.
there in court, but he's
He
going to
testifies
testify.
on Thursday.
Yeah, and obviously we will come out on the Tuesday, so we've no idea. And look, he turned up, and I assume, he will testify. How long he stays in the UK, we don't know. The thought is he'll be here for a week, do his testimony, and then head away, and obviously keep in touch from wherever he is. But
wait, P.S. Rupert, I was wrong. I thought he would appear at the Legends of Aviation Awards, and I believe that those are 4 days from now. So you're right. I think he's going to stay where he's planted. But it also just tells you that he shows up for a trophy and the commitment is not there beyond that. He's very self-serving because otherwise he would be helping to promote the Legends of Aviation Awards again this year.
Well, I think this court case, this is his cause célèbre, so that's why it's here. But for the royal, i.e. the King and Prince William and the Princess of Wales, their approach has to be get on with it, don't say anything, stand well clear of anything of this sort of psychodrama that goes on around this. For Harry, this is a big thing. For the royal family, I think they just want it to end as quickly as possible, get him in and out of court, and then maybe, because this court case is going on for 9 weeks, it will drag on, it will sort of get bogged down in legalese, and eventually we'll get a result. But as I say, we could be waiting to mid-March before we get that. So that will be the royal family's approach, right? He's in town, he was seen today, waved to a few press photographers. He's sitting in the court, listening to the opening proceedings, and then it will be interesting.
And we're also waiting. We're also waiting for Ravik, the Ravik decision. So the royal family has 9 weeks plus however long the Ravik decision takes.
Yeah, and the Ravik decision, that I do feel, and I think we alluded to it last week, is more of a sort of PF saying it's all been done. I don't believe that at all. I think it's, that's, believing, and then trying to turn the emphasis that it'll be the royal family's decision who didn't want it. So they're trying to back the government into the corner. But for Harry, this is his big cause célèbre. It's giving himself something to do at the moment because he hasn't got much. Now, Willie came in with no fuss and bother. We didn't see any indication of him, presumably flew in commercial, I assume, comes in, staying wherever. The only thing is we don't want to see him knocking on friends' doors in the middle of the night like a pizza delivery man, but you never know if he's feeling lonely. So, look, it is the whole thing is sad, I have to say. But for the King, Prince and Princess of Wales, they've got more important things to worry about. And I think we started this edition of Heirs and Spares talking about some of those important things that will be on their agenda this week in their meetings.
Well, we also have Scotland coming up. I mean, all the talks about whether or not there would be a royal reunion between Prince Harry and his father, or Prince Harry and his sibling. When hell freezes over. The idea that he might try to see the king. You might have made this point already, but I don't think while he has any litigation, they're going to be seen with him or they're going to meet with him because they're trying to stay out of it. But the idea that everybody's going to be gone in Scotland, I think that
Yeah.
You did say that their schedules are planned well in advance, but a lot of people are looking at that like, wow, they sure got the hell out of Dodge to avoid Harry.
Well, the problem is they don't want to see the king, Harry, under these circumstances. He's in a trial. The royal family, remember, hate people from the royal family appearing in court. It doesn't happen very often. And so Harry's there. They need to stay well clear because then that draws them into it. Um, and we don't want that media circus. And that's what the
I wish
king
I
is
could remember the
trying.
year. It was a Prince of Wales the last time a royal was on the stand, right? It
Oh,
was a Prince of Wales, and it was about an illegal card game.
well, that involved members of my family.
Oh, tell me,
Back
you
in
got
the
yeah, go for it.
the Tranbury Croft, and back in some family called Wilson, and I think I'm descendants, and it's Edward VII was involved in this allegations of one of the card members and cheating at cards, and it was a big deal, and that's why he ended. That was in the late 1890s.
Mm.
And Tranbury Croft, you can Google and find all about it. It was a big deal. I think there have been other instances
Oh,
since.
you're right.
But
Princess Anne and a dog, right?
yeah, 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 biting a dog, and then I think there's probably been one or two of them have been done for speeding. So things like that. But well, the dog biting one, I don't know the full circumstances. So the things happen, but that Tranbury Croft incident. I'll try and dig out the book and talk about it in more detail next week. But of what member in the 1890s, and it was a big deal back then, and sort of allegations of cheating at cards, and that was very considered an absolute no-no then, a social disgrace. And Edward VII was sort of his involvement in it was sort of highlighted. But anyway, that aside, from this is not something the royal family enjoy seeing a member of and an important member of the family going in front of the High Court. Although this is a civil court case, not a criminal one, and so there is technical differences, but at the same time, it's not. They do not like um, ending up in front of a judge and having to answer questions. And that's probably one of the reasons why Andrew was encouraged with that money that was reportedly paid to Virginia Giuffre. It will be interesting how this whole thing does pan out. But for other members of the royal family, they will be holding their breath and just hoping this can get over and done with in terms of Harry's prominent role within the proceedings, can get over and done with, move on, and let's just wait for the verdict and then see what happens. Whether, others might be found guilty that something happened, I don't know. It's too difficult to speculate as to what's going to happen in this. It's not our place. It's now in a court, a rule of being
It is it
investigated.
is our place. All
Yeah.
we do is speculate, Rupert.
Well, we speculate, but I wouldn't know how it was going to pan out. I am not a legal brain. I can just about cope with sport. In fact, I've suddenly had to take on a geopolitical role this week. I'm suddenly find my grey cells, like Hercule Poirot, they're getting a little older, but my grey cells are having to work overtime at the moment to keep pace with everything that's going on at the moment to make sure I'm at least talking some sense about it. I hope.
Hmm. I mean, I guess if I were to speculate, I'd say that it hopefully he would find the fulfillment he is so desperately looking for with this case, and hopefully they can shut the door on litigation, because it's like you said, it costs a lot of money, it's a lot of energy, and it has him living in the past. I mean, Harry's going to bat for incidents that happened well before he met his new wife, and he's he's missing time with his children and that wife to bang down this closed door.
I think this is the problem. It's something that's been gnawing away at him all his life, and it is his, mission. And suddenly, when you probably haven't got much else to do, you suddenly becomes your focus. and this is his focus. And he's now turned 40. He now wants to make sure he can move on, and all his past is behind him. But he doesn't seem to be able to. He's left the royal family, but he's clutching at that royal family to give him the oxygen of publicity. And this is the problem for him, because as we say, he's not necessarily the brightest tool in the box, but, hopefully, whatever the outcome, good or bad for him, he finally says, right, enough is enough. I have to now rebuild my life and give my life a sense of purpose and direction, because at the moment, I'm not sure what direction it is heading in.
Well, he does have the blessing of Invictus being 1 year away, and that gives him plenty to do in the lead up to Invictus. But yes, when we don't have Invictus, I sit back and go, what is he doing? Surfing, ayahuasca, marijuana? What are you doing today, Prince Harry? A proper New Year reset isn't about extremes. It's about showing up as your best self every day. Beam is a company proudly founded in America, run by people who share our values, and they've built products that help you keep the promises you make to yourself, the promises that actually matter. Beam's best-selling Dream Powder is a healthy nighttime blend packed with proven ingredients shown to improve sleep so you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on the day. Dream is made with a powerful blend of all-natural ingredients, reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, and melatonin. It's designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling amazing. No groggy hangover. The sea salt caramel flavor, absolute heaven, like indulgent hot cocoa without the guilt. Dream is made right here in America, no shortcuts. Founders guided by integrity and a strong work ethic. Beam has transformed over 28 million nights of sleep. So, if you've been waiting for the right time to try Dream, this is it. Go to shopbeam.com/Kinsey. Use code Kinsey for up to 40% off. That's just $39 with my code. $1.25 per night. Shopbeam.com/Kinsey today. Let's talk about a new hire for the Sussexes. Sunshine Sachs, page 6 confirming that Harry and Meghan are once again working with Sunshine Sachs. Last December, they lost their 11th publicist, Meredith Maines. And the hire of Sunshine Sachs, I honestly do think it will surprise our viewers, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. As detailed in Tom Bower's Revenge and Valentine Lowe's Courtiers, Meghan erupted after her 2017 Vanity Fair cover ran with the headline, "She's just wild about Harry." She phones Ken Sunshine, according to Tom Bower and Kaylee Thomas Morgan, in a fury. So angry over this article and cover. She also, according to Lowe, later described the headline as racist, citing its link to a 1939 Judy Garland song associated with blackface, which you saw the tabloids when Harry was born to Princess Diana. It was all wild about Harry, with Diana glowing on the front page. So it had no association with Judy Garland whatsoever. It's just a cute take on a classic, iconic song. Sunshine Sachs, I doubt that they will have a more difficult client on their hands than the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. What's your take there?
Well, they've got to have a thick skin, and they've got to be strong. And basically, what will happen is they'll try and tell them, if history is going to repeat themselves, which it probably will do, they will try and say, you need to do this, but you need to do this, and Meghan and Harry listening is the problem. Now, these are supposed to be crisis management people. Now, if you look at where the Sussexes are, they need someone who can turn around the public's perception. And the only way that will come is if they start listening they've got to play the long game. And it means shutting up, just quietly getting on with your business, not trying to every opportunity be seen to be competitive because you feel you've got to respond to be seen to be relevant. Just for the goodness sake, shut up for some time and let's regroup and make sure that whatever's going on with the As Ever brand is just ticking along nicely. If you've got ideas, let's just spend what no, let's look 6 months down the line. And then Harry, you've got Invictus Games, come over here in July, whatever happens after this court case. But that will be easier said than done. As you know, it's pathological. She needs to be out there almost on a daily basis to prove her relevance. What we see, last week was a case in points. That sort of video trumpeting the love that she has for Harry, as someone said to me on Talk Radio, said to me, methinks she does protest too much. Well, as I come from Shakespeare country, I couldn't disagree with that person's assessment more. I think it's absolutely relevant. She tries too hard to think that she is the most loved up couple, they are the most loved up couple in humanity.
Well, I did a lot of research on Sunshine Sachs because I thought, why go back to this company if you had a negative experience? Otherwise, you would have stuck with them, because she did stick with them through her marriage to Prince Harry when the royal family was saying, you need to cut ties with all of these entities because you're now going to be under the royal family umbrella. Meghan quietly and secretly held on to some of her agents and held on to her publicist, specifically in this case, Sunshine Sachs. So I did some research on where their strengths are. I looked at some awards they'd won and some acknowledgments they've received within the industry. And to your point, and I think this is a negative for Harry and Meghan, their work with celebrities tends towards legacy building and reputation shaping over time, not just momentary media strikes. And one of my biggest observations and issues with Harry and Meghan when it comes to their current PR strategy is they focus on reactive instead of proactive. Even in the instance you just described with Meghan posting those videos loved up with Harry, I think that's reactive. After a slew of tabloid headlines about how miserable Harry is in the United States and how desperate he is to go home, I think Meghan posting that video of her dancing with him and some of those pictures is a reaction to clap back at some of those headlines she doesn't like. The headlines about Doria, her mom, getting the last one, the most recent person to, get the chop from Meghan. There's Doria in the pool with Lily. Again, reaction instead of being proactive. And so Sunshine Sachs has the credibility, the authority. They have what it would take to get Harry and Meghan's you-know-what together. If this fails, it's all on Harry and Meghan. And there's just no other way to put it. If this blows up in their face, this is Harry and Meghan's fault.
I couldn't agree with you more, because these people know how they're trying to restore the credibility of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. That's their long game. It won't happen overnight. You've got the Camilla, now our Queen. How long did that take to get the British public and maybe a wider public on her side? And I'm sure now there are still people who will not see her as our Queen, but she is the wife of the king. But it was a long game that had to be played, to build her, for her staying quiet, just working hard, being popular when she went to places. And now, as we've seen recently, she's put her head above the parapet when she's been talking about how she was attacked on a train when she was a teenage girl, and all the slightly uncomfortable charities that for many people she's involved in. She's actually talks from the top, but she's had to work at getting that sort of the British public on her side, that she then felt in the eyes of the British public presumably comfortable enough to be talking about such personal issues. And it's not something the royal family do. But in terms of the Sussexes, they have to take now I've got to learn to take a nuanced approach and a mature approach, which is where am I going to be? Right. Here's the situation now. Where am I going to be in 6 months' time? What do I think is where should we be? I'm fed up with these, they've got to be saying, I'm fed up with these negative headlines. So how do we change people's perceptions? One of the things is don't look so flipping needy.
Desperate.
Right?
We can smell the as ever
Yeah.
desperation floral
Well,
perfume coming off of you.
From both sides. And that is the problem. Whereas Harry now looks, at times he looks like a startled rabbit, doesn't rabbit in headlights wondering, what am I doing? And that's sad because he is, for all him saying he didn't like being in the royal family, it sure as heck gave him a comfortable lifestyle because absolutely everything was done for him.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's got to think for himself. And
well,
that's proving the more.
Yeah, we constantly talk about how everything the Prince and Princess of Wales do, it seems like there's an ultimate objective, and we understand that. And so we don't go like, why is Catherine at Fashion Week? Why is Catherine at Fashion Week? Everything they do is moving them towards a purpose that they have on some vision board somewhere, or at least everybody is under the understanding that that's why they're doing it. But the Hollywood Reporter writes the tiniest paragraph about Meghan being a dictator in high heels, and Harry and Meghan immediately run to Us Weekly magazine, and it is my opinion, forces their paid employees at gunpoint to give glowing testimonies about what a great boss Meghan Markle is. We don't understand what Harry and Meghan stand for. They just loaded off their charity to another charity or another entity. We don't understand what they really want with their lives. And so if Sunshine Sachs can point them in the direction of focusing and really visualizing what it is they want to be remembered for or known for. But to your point, Queen Camilla wasn't on Instagram posting frivolous, dumb, useless posts constantly. She rarely sat down to do interviews. We've seen more of her now than ever. I look at Sunshine Sachs that is so Hollywood focused, like Leonardo DiCaprio is one of their clients. Although Leonardo DiCaprio is a great mystery. I mean, Nikki Glaser just said that at the Golden Globes. We know nothing about you except none of your girlfriends are over 25 years old. So he's actually a great,
which was a very funny line.
Very funny. So he's actually a great example of how they should be. But I'm worried because they're so Hollywood focused that we might see Meghan on more podcasts like the Not Skinny, Not Fat podcast, or they have a huge relationship with red carpet shows. They help studios with Emmy campaigns. Might we see a bigger presence from Harry and Meghan on red carpets? Let's just hope that they really do use someone like Queen Camilla or even Leonardo DiCaprio as a template, because less is more. Catherine is so meaningful to me because I know so little about her. And what I do know about her, I like, but she limits her access to me. And so I'm charmed. I'm enchanted by that mystery.
Well, I think, and they need to maintain that. But you've got to drip feed. And I think William was quite good in that interview with Eugene Levy saying, I want to make sure that I leave for George, him being proud in what he's going to be doing and a sense of understanding and confidence.
But how often do those interviews happen?
What? No, exactly. And they shouldn't happen very often. And look, we've seen him do podcasts with members of his family, sports ones. We see him do things when he's working for a cause, whether it be the Football Association or others. So there's always a purpose. But that Eugene Levy one was definitely in this is what I'm about. even though there are reports coming around that he's not allowed to use his electric
scooter anymore.
scooter anymore. He can use it in the grounds of Windsor Castle, but he can't now take it up from Forest Lodge up to the castle. But anyway, that's a minor detail. But
Champagne
actually,
problems.
yeah. So first world problems. But actually, hasn't Hollywood, throughout its history, always done its best to protect its stars? Now you go, back in the day, in the sort of the
Rock
black and white
Hudson.
you're right. Well, I was immediately thinking of Rock Hudson. In all the stories, the cover-ups, people would have walkers, even though, it was all designed to create an image. And, in a way, Leonardo DiCaprio is a classic example. Now, what his love life's about, do I care? Is he a brilliant actor? He's got a body of work that is as good as anybody's out there. So clearly, but what he does, if he's managing his life, it's about my work, what I do outside that, then get on with it. And that's the way to play it. My work is what I'm going to be remembered for, even though, and the occasional very good joke at things like the Emmy Awards, he'll be remembered for. But presumably he's got a thick skin and he can rise above it. Hollywood has history, and we even know now, let's be honest, chat shows are all about, you don't ask the proper question. What are we here for? We're here to promote X, Y, and Z, and that's our brief. And then everything in that particular interview, it's a happy, there's no difficult questions. And we just have to accept. So if you're like that kind of thing, and you want to see stars sort of go through the motions and sort of parade. I mean, there are one or two good chat shows that sort of often show a different side. We've got Graham Norton over here, which is, definitely a left field. Rule number one: give them some alcohol.
Lots of liquor.
Let's just see what happens. And as Matt Damon once said, it's the best fun I've had on a talk show ever in his life. So, there are good ones. And, I was brought up with good people doing chat shows, and stars would come along just because that person had the pulling power to ask, come onto my show.
Oh, and can I tell you, there is a real transition happening here. I just did a story about, for Sky News Australia, about the decline in late night shows here, the decline in viewership in late night shows. Stephen Colbert is suffering the consequences. His contract was recently not renewed, so his show will end at some point this year. You see a decline in Kimmel, Fallon, all of them. Fallon's my favorite because he's silly and fun, but you are seeing such a pivot to podcasting and Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's audience is losing their mind. They're so sick of all the celebrities coming on. They miss the weirdos that are chasing aliens. They miss the comedians. And now they're having to sit through 3 hours of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, to your point. Yeah. And I think about that sometimes because I know that there are people that sit across from Prince Harry and say, we got to get you on Rogan. Because when Harry's sitting there with Hassan Minaj, he wants to be on Rogan because that everybody's watching Rogan. I didn't even know Hassan Minaj had a podcast, but because Harry and Meghan, Hassan Minaj, thank you. But because Harry and Meghan flapped their jaws in 2020 and tried to get Spotify to fire Joe Rogan because they didn't like what he was saying about the plague, which actually turned out to not be controversial at all. Harry and Meghan are now not welcome on the Joe Rogan podcast. And it's just, we have so many examples of these two. You said it yourself. Just be quiet. Just shut the hell up. Just be quiet. And now they have limited opportunities for themselves to be taken seriously and to really reach an audience because they are so in love with themselves and like to hear the sound of their own voice.
Well, let's be honest. That's most of Hollywood, isn't it? At times
it's all about. They are so worse.
Well, it's about controlled environments and, everything is perfect. Yeah, you scratch under the surface and it's an absolute, scratch your eyes out. They're all as competitive as each other and they're sort of whispering behind your back, they'll stab you in the back as soon as look at you. So, it's not straightforward. But for the Sussexes, they've got to, less is more now. Find a way of building blocks, because if you're unpopular in America, I think they're seen as very much as almost an irrelevance in America in the wider picture, because at the moment they're not going to get, if they're going to get any publicity on any news channel, then presumably they're about to go and invade Alaska or something. I mean, I don't know, but something mad, mind blowing is having to get them on the front page in America. Over here, there is always going to be a degree of fascination because Harry is a member of the royal family and there's relevance in that case, whether he's working or non-working. So there's always easier over here, yet she's trying to build her brand up in America, cashing in on her British connection. So it's not a good look. But I do think if they are living in Hollywood and they're going to have to live by Hollywood rules, but they've got to match, they've got to realize it's not an easy playing field. Not a free pass anymore. It is not. That easy moment has gone. And by the way, I watched the Matt Damon and Ben Affleck program the other day on Netflix, The Rip. Thought it was pretty good. Yeah. Always, have you had time to watch it? Probably not. Have you watched The Rip?
I watched it just because I knew that they with their Netflix contract, something Harry and Meghan didn't do, by the way, they negotiated to where their entire production team gets bonuses based on the success of the movie. So I wanted to ensure that the movie was a success so that their team would get bonuses. And so I sat down and watched it, even though I was in the mood for a rom-com. I went for the shoot 'em up movie.
Well, it was definitely a shoot 'em up movie in every sense. It was about drugs as well, wasn't it? So, but it was engaging, dark. I mean, I think basically it seemed like there was no daylight shooting there. Everything was shot out of hours by the looks of things. But fair play. Matt Damon, I think, is always compelling, and Ben Affleck, they've been together since the age of at school. So it's a compelling story, and they're in business together, and they're playing it well. Mm-hmm. So presumably, whatever plans they get more than a first look.
Right.
And this wasn't it, and it was, I checked, it seemed like it wasn't a production that was just thrown together with no budget. It looked like it had a proper budget. But that's how to do a Netflix deal. Come up with products that people are going to want. They're two frontline names and they will sell. Now, I assume The Rip, it dropped in this country last Friday, has had pretty big viewing figures. If you and I have watched it, we come from, you want to sit up and get your handkerchief out and start crying over some rom-com, whereas I'm conforming to stereotype. Give me a Matt Damon in movie where he's having to fight against the odds, or there's something going on anytime. Although Good Will Hunting was a good film.
It was, so, and I could cry during it. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, agree with us, disagree with us. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Rupert, I see you again next week. What a treat.
Well, we might have a lot to talk about. And by the way, just to all the viewers, I got away with last week, didn't I?
Yeah.
Didn't I?
You did. You walked away unscathed.
And I apologize for the cough this week, dear viewers, but I've taken lots of water. It's just midwinter and it's foggy, it's damp, but hopefully it will have gone by next week. Have a good week, Kinsey.
You too. Bye-bye.